This episode briefly mentions a diagnosis of brain cancer. Please watch or listen with care. The Disabled Crone, a Spoonie Authors Network podcast hosted by Kat Gordon. Special guest, Melissa Yee. 5 interesting things about my career. Hi, I'm Kat Gordon, author, editor, cupcake eater, and welcome to The Disabled Crone. Our topic today will be 5 interesting things about my career, except not my career, but the career of the most awesome, amazing, super author. I think she's all of those things. Melissa Yee. Melissa Yee loves writing everything from thrillers to happily ever afters. Her work as an emergency doctor inspires her heroine, Dr. Hope C., to solve everything from ingrown toenails to full-blown murder, and sometimes the supernatural. In Sugar and Vice, Hope encounters felony, feasts, and dragons. Since Melissa lives in the cutest small town, she also started writing short, sweet hockey romances about the Glengarry Guards. Melissa won the Derringer Award for the Best Short Mystery in the English Language and the Prix Aurora Award for the Best Speculative Poem in Canada. She lives with her family, including 2 rescue dogs in Eastern Ontario. Welcome, Melissa!
Yay! Thank you so much, Kat.
Thank you so much for being here. And I totally love these get to know you type of things because I got to know things about you and I can't wait to share this with other people.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so here we go. First interesting thing. So, first thing that comes to mind as really interesting about you is that you're an ER doctor. So, how did your medical career enter into your writing world?
Well, it was sort of deliberately planned, I guess. I always knew that I wanted to write, but I didn't want to starve to death. So I was like, I love people. I love helping them. Science is fun. Medicine seems like a good choice. So that's what I decided to do with my life and then spend my free time writing. And I knew that medicine would introduce me to interesting people and good stories.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I would just like to quickly ask, like, to me, like, that's a huge career. Like, how do you find time to do the writing while being an ER doctor?
So everybody does it differently. I'm sorry that my dogs are super excited. If you hear them barking, they just want to know the answer too. So the for me, it's people are always talking about work-life balance. So I just when I finally finished training, which was a lot of training, um, I just ended up saying, "What can I do?" And I talked to my husband about kind of limiting the amount of medicine that I practice and focusing, and so that I would have a bit of time and energy to write.
Oh, that's great. And can we talk about like your superstar, the superstar character who is also a doctor?
Absolutely, Dr. Hope C. So when I was in medical school, actually, I was just flipping around, looking at names, and that's how I found the last name SZE.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was an interesting name. Although in retrospect, like people always ask me how to pronounce it, so it wasn't the best choice. So you should probably pick something that is easy to spell and pronounce for the average reader. Anyway, although one English teacher did say to me that it was interesting because she sees, she's a detective and she's a physician. So it was kind of interesting. Um, I just, in my head, I like to mash things together. So I was like, what if we had a doctor who could also solve murders? And since I was doing my residency, I thought it would be neat to have a resident doctor who's moving from one type of medicine to another every month.
Well, I regret I've only read one book. Sadly, as an editor, I read a lot of books, but I loved what I read. And now that I'm starting to read more again, I'm going to go dive more into your work because, folks, it's fantastic. Okay, second interesting thing. This one I absolutely love. You describe yourself as a sunshine married to a grumpy.
Okay, I thought about it because you probably know romance novels are very trope heavy. So people like to know what they're getting into. And one of the tropes is grumpy sunshine. And I had never thought about it before, but my husband and I are grumpy sunshine. So we met in high school and we have been together ever since, actually. And, you know, he's just a lot more serious and he likes to reflect on stuff and he's a huge introvert. Um, whereas I also have introverted tendencies, but I really enjoy like meeting exciting people like you and listening to cool stories. And, just I do sometimes get a lot of energy from other people. So like pretty early on, like in medical school, he just ended up telling me, I don't want to go out. And like my friends were like, where's Matt? Just what happened to him? And I'm like, oh, he's sleeping. And that was just like, what is happening? And, it's only gotten more so over time. Like, we'll be having a party and I mean, like, okay, let's, like it's time to light the candles. And then like my husband is just not there. And I'll have to go find him, just so he can be there for the kids' birthday cake. Like it's really not his thing. He really likes silence.
He likes
Um,
silence. I know. I
mhm.
mean, I get it. I'm a massive extrovert, but because I have auditory processing syndrome, like sometimes silence is super nice. But did you write a romance yourself with the sunshine and the
Yes,
girl?
yes.
Oh,
So that one is called Just the Tip of the Iceberg. And
I love it. I love it
so
so
it's a
hard.
double pun. Okay, great. I'm glad you did. And for that one, when I looked into tropes, Mountain Man was a huge trope. So I was like, oh, okay. And also hockey players are a very big deal. So I was like, well, I'm going to have a Mountain Man hockey player. And when I looked into it, curvy girls are also very in, which I love. And
Yeah.
I am, as you may have heard, I have two dogs. So I have her on a mountain with her runaway dog, and he has to help her find her dog and then take her to his cabin during an ice storm where there's only one bed. So
Okay.
all the tropes just mashed up into one.
I am totally buying that book right after we
Okay.
stop having this interview. I love it. All right. Third interesting thing. You had an arrangement with a travel company, and that also relate to writing?
Yeah, like I guess things just sort of fall out of the sky. So a travel company approached me and was like, would you like to write novels in exchange for traveling the world? And I said, yes, that sounds good.
Wow.
Um, so the idea would be that you would get a free trip and then you would write a book in exchange that is for them. Like you don't own the rights anymore. So that's what I did. And I went to Ecuador and the Galapagos, which I always wanted to visit. Like when I was in grade three and I found out about the Galapagos Islands, I'm like, that sounds like the place where I should go.
Wow.
So I was excited about that. And the next place was Egypt, um, which was also interesting. Just there's so much history to explore that I just didn't know about and that I don't find is taught that much in school. And then COVID hit and we
Oh,
haven't done anything since. But it was just cool to see more of the world. And I'm just that kind of random person. Like, if you're just like, do you want to go somewhere, like it could be like somewhere that you've never heard of? I'd be like, huh, yeah, why not?
that is so cool. You have like an adventurous spirit. I have never heard of anything like that before. Like, how awesome is that? We'll give you a trip, just write a book for us. Oh, okay. All
Yeah, yeah.
right. Fourth interesting thing. Um, oh yes, the personality test. And when I wrote to you about this, I said I used to tell people that I must be the most self-aware person on the planet because when I was working as a technical writer in communications, like in the 90s, personality tests were everywhere. They were like these huge things. But you also did personality tests. And I'm really interested to know, like, what did doing those tests mean for you and your career?
So I love personality quizzes. And I actually have an undergraduate degree in psychology because I just find it interesting, combined with an arts and science degree from McMaster. And for me, what I find helpful is that so much of writing is psychological, which
Hmm.
I mean that it's not always physically difficult to sit down and write, but the whole idea of to open a vein, or, after you've written 12 books, where do you go from here?
Yeah.
Or, what if your books don't sell? Or what if you get a lot of hate mail, like
Mm,
actual hate mail?
yeah.
So all these things can combine to stop your career or just make you not feel as good about continuing it, because it's a lonely thing to sit in your room and write, and you don't always get encouragement from it. Like, society just wants you to sort of be a cog in the machine and watch
Mm,
Netflix,
yeah. Yeah.
instead of creating your own worlds.
Yeah.
So when I was feeling discouraged, one of the things that I looked into was Becca Syme's Better Faster Academy. And she's very, oh, sorry. She promotes the Clifton strengths, which are, um, the idea behind that is that instead of looking at your strengths and weaknesses, try to focus on your strengths, because you'll be more likely to get ahead by looking at your strengths.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, the number one thing was called ideation, which is basically like innovation and creativity. And that did help me because I realized, for example, my books are a bit weird,
I love it.
maybe even very weird. And so that is hard sometimes for people. Like, they're just like, so the very first Hope C novel, for example, has romance in it.
Hmm.
And like, so there are a bunch of angry reviews that, like, what is this doing here? I wanted a mystery, for example. Um, so if you don't fit in the box, it can be tough. And um, that helped me just understand that that's part of me. So when I
Yeah.
thought about, okay, I want to, like, I try and conform more, I can try and do the tropes more. It was a struggle for me, like, to just be like, but actually, the whole reason why I'm doing this is because I wanted to do something new and different. Um, so I'm just trying to balance those things, like the market and my desire for creativity. And so that helps me, just for example.
I find genre mashing one of my favorite things. You know, there's too many cogs. Like, I want something different too, right? Like it's, I mean, the the fact that you mixed romance with mystery, or like even paranormal and all kinds of stuff, like, to me that's really really cool. Like, I'd be way more interested to buy books from you than someone who just does the standard. I mean, I wrote a humorous space opera military romance, queer romance. And then in the middle of it, I threw in almost like a Jane Austen ballroom scene. So, like, I am there with you, like, you write what you want to write. I think that's fantastic. And I totally see that. I totally see that you're an innovator that way. Um, I had the pleasure of doing the foreword for the Mighty anthology, and I read your story. It's Glock. Is it Glock Bitches? Is that what it's called? First
Yeah.
of all, great title. Um, and and I loved how, like, all these. Well, actually, do you mind? It's such a good short story in that anthology. Do you mind just saying a little bit about that, because that kind of shows kind of your creativity?
Okay. Yeah. So this anthology, like, promotes people who have disabilities as superheroes.
Yeah.
So instead of being the sidekick or someone who needs rescuing or something like that. So so for me, I have normal pressure glaucoma,
Mhm.
which means that the pressure in my eyes are normal, but unfortunately that I still have changes to my retina. So I decided, I don't know, again, I don't even know where exactly this came from, but I wanted to have it that instead of it just being something that took away from you, that as the glaucoma progresses, you get superpowers. And in
Yeah.
this case, the protagonist is just sort of drafted into this group where they're like, we're going to go rescue these dogs that have been kidnapped by this woman's ex-husband. Are you in? And she's like, I don't have a superpower and I don't want to be arrested. And they're like, well, you're going to come anyway, sort of thing. And they just, and it's sort of, and they just, and it's a heist for dogs. and she does end up finding her superpower and working with these wonderful women.
I love the story because what I love is there's no pure narrative in it. They all are who they are, and then they do some like kind of badass stuff, and yay for rescuing dogs. So I just wanted you to share that with our audience because it just to me also shows your creativity. Okay, fifth interesting thing. You're not only a book author and an amazing short story writer, but you write poetry and you're a playwright. So can you please tell us a little bit about like the play? I'm interested in the play first. Can you talk about the plays you write?
Oh, for sure. So, I love theater. I just find it a really fun thing that you can do, and they try so hard to make it accessible to everybody. That you often you can pay what you can, or go for $10 or something like that. And they try to have a lot of different voices. And so, it was actually the Ottawa Fringe Festival reached out, and they were like, we're having this open doors program where if you've been marginalized and you've never produced a play before, you can apply for this program for the Fringe Festival. And at the
Wow.
time, I was running around and I had just come back from Egypt and all this stuff. And I was like, this is exactly what I need to do, because if I'm going to do a play, I really need to have some sort of mentorship since I don't know what I'm doing. And if I don't get it, that's fine. I can always try another year. But I did get one of the two spots for the Open Doors program. And I was like, oh, well, my collection, The Most Unfeeling Doctor in the World and Other True Tales from the Emergency Room, um, was a bestseller on Amazon. And I was like, well, people like that collection of stories, and that would be just a good one woman show to
Right.
have. So I ended up putting that on, and ended up winning Best of Fest for my venue, and
Wow.
which is great. And it has been, for example, mounted in Calgary through the Lunchbox Theater and stuff like that. And I went to Winnipeg myself. So it was like I was happy to find out how great playwriting can be and how theater can be really welcoming. And I ended up doing one of my novels, Terminally Ill, as a play as well in the Undercurrents Festival last year.
That's
But that was a lot of
amazing.
work. Like that was like lots of trying to get grants, and which are increasingly underfunded and stuff. But what I felt good about for that was that I was able to like have quite a large cast, a lot of people of color, queer people, like just be like, we're going to put on this show and I'm going to pay you.
Oh, nice.
Um,
Wow. Okay, I have to rewind though a little bit. The most unfeeling doctor in the world. That is a title. Can you share a little bit about what that was about? I know it's about your
yes,
experiences, but
one of the
yeah.
patients thought I was the most unfeeling doctor.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, so I was pretty upset about it, but I also, considered it, because I've, as part of going through life, I have looked into Buddhism,
Mhm.
and one of the sayings is the people who make you the most angry are your best teachers.
Oh,
So when
interesting.
I felt angry about it, I was like, I felt even angrier thinking that this person was also my teacher. Uh, so I had to kind of come to terms with it. So I wrote about that. And then when I ended up putting together, like having a collection of short essays, I said to my husband, I was like, what do you think? I could call it Lifesaver, which is a joke because of the candy,
Oh,
or the most unfeeling doctor in the world. And he was like, well, of course, the most unfeeling doctor in the world. And I was like, okay, yes, I think that is a better title. So
you know,
so now I say thank you to the person.
yeah, okay. I mean, it's so funny because like I've known you for a few years and I just can't imagine anybody feeling that way about you. It makes me wonder though, like, I guess sometimes, frustrations run high and I'm glad you were able to take that experience as hurtful as it was and turn it into something. How was the audience response to that particular one woman show?
It was interesting. So actually, one of the things I worked through in the play that I didn't work through in the essays
Hmm.
was that my own father, I helped diagnose him with brain cancer.
Oh my, okay.
So that's part of the play. And for example, if somebody came up to me afterwards, it was like, if I'd known that that was in the play, I wouldn't have come because my
Mm,
son died from brain cancer.
right, right.
So there are different things, like obviously there are some lighter moments that even like even that can be uncomfortable for people because, for example, like the first time that I helped deliver a baby or catch a baby is like some people find that funny and some people are like really uncomfortable with childbirth.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that like I
Hmm.
guess quite often in my work I find myself that I'm like, oh yes, so childbirth is part of life. And some people are just like, running the other way.
What year was that particular play?
2019 was the year that I did it.
2019. Okay. No, you know what I'm asking is these days we do much like I found even in the last 2, 3 years, we do much more with content warnings, content notes, and all that kind of stuff. They're becoming a little bit more mainstream. So I was just curious as to when that was happening. But yeah,
I think
it's
I did put one in the description,
oh,
but
okay.
I did not specifically say brain cancer.
Right,
So
right.
yeah.
Well, I mean, congratulations on winning the award for that. But also poetry. So what is it about poetry that like how did you get moved towards that?
Oh, well, that actually is part of medicine. So that circles back to the first question because, if you can't, there's one poet who was saying she had several children, maybe even 5 children or something like that. So it
Hmm.
was really hard for her to carry a longer story in her brain, but to have poetry where you can think of a line at a time
Yeah.
is easier to keep track of. And I felt the same way for that for medicine. If I'm standing in the operating room and I can't think of a full, plot or anything like that, but I can think of one line, it's
Hmm.
much easier. It's much more manageable. And you can just, it really distills language and is an easy way to me to communicate with people because everyone's so rushed. But if they see one line, sometimes that can really strike them.
For sure. And do you know how many poems you've actually written?
Um, I don't tend to count things, but I would say that I probably over my lifetime, like probably at least 30 or something. But
Whoa, that
published poetry, like not too many. It's hard to publish poems. Like the market is tough to do. But I did win the Aurora Award for poetry last year. No,
yes.
2023. Now we're a new year.
Congratulations for that too. I remember going, woo. No, I mean, so you know what? These are five interesting things, but I bet you we can find five more interesting things. But sadly, we are running out of time. I wish I could talk to you for like another half an hour. Um, but you do so much great work. And I really want people to find out about you. So can you please share with our audience where that we can find all the Melissa stuff?
You are hilarious. Yes. So my website is melissayee.com. And I have all social media on Linktree, Melissa Yee, which is Melissafay.
Okay, great. And folks, please do check out Melissa Yee's works because, again, super amazing, awesome person. Can't think of enough good adjectives here. And thank you so much, Melissa, for being here today on my little podcast. I really, really loved having you here today, and wanted to interview you for some time, and finally I have the opportunity. So thanks again so much for being here with us.
Kat, if you ever wanted to, you could be on stage. I'm just letting you know that
Well,
if people haven't already tried to recruit you.
hey, I'm available. I used to be a lead singer. So I used to be a performing musician and lead singer. So I knew how to connect with an audience that way, but I always wanted to do drama. So, hey, but thank you so much for that encouragement, Melissa.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, folks, for joining us today on the Disabled Crone, and stay tuned for episode 4. Thanks for watching and listening to the Disabled Crone. You could learn more about the Spoonie Authors Network by going to our website, SpoonieAuthorsNetwork.com. Follow us also on Blue Sky. And many thanks to Bruce Gordon for letting us use his tune as our theme for this podcast.